This podcast is a good one. It's no longer an extreme lifestyle. It's easy. It's accessible. We're talking vegan diet. Did you know more than 2 million Australians are eating meat-free? This week, Harriet Walker discusses what are the benefits of being vegan, what nutrients do I need to be aware of, and what should I do if I'm a vegan athlete?
Welcome to the Body Science Podcast, bringing you everything you need, want, and should know about health, fitness, nutrition, and training. As always, the information contained in this podcast is for the information purposes only and is not designed to diagnose or be prescriptive to treat, prevent, or manage any injury, disease, or other health-related condition.
Today's podcast is brought to you by our new clean bars. We spent countless hours sourcing only the best, high-quality, nourishing ingredients from trusted suppliers and getting the balance between nutritional value, taste, and texture just right. Made with all natural ingredients you can feel good about, like plant proteins, fruits, seeds, and nuts. Simply bursting with quality protein, antioxidants, fibre, and healthy fats, plus are 100% vegan-friendly. And the taste? Divine.
Welcome to the Body Science Podcast. Again with me is dietitian rock star Harriet Walker. harrietwalker.com.au for anyone looking for some cool notes at the end of this podcast. Today we're hitting the big topic of vegan diets. So it's moved on from flexitarian. Is that the right word? Have I used that correctly?
Yes, flexitarian's a thing.
Which was popular, to vegan dominating the world, and just so much so that even when we're creating products here at Body Science, we've got three basic rules. If we can make them gluten-free, make them gluten-free. If we can make them vegan, make them vegan. And if we can, what's the other one? I make the products, I've forgotten what the third one.
Sugar-free.
Thank you. If I can make them sugar-free, make them sugar-free. So vegan's a major part of our plan going forward too, like making tablets, not using lactose as
gelatin caps.
Exactly, just moving away from that product altogether. So they're saying at the moment, Harriet, that 2 million Australians are pretty much living an animal-free diet.
That's a pretty compelling figure. That's what's the population of Australia? 20 million?
Yeah, actually that's Roy Morgan research, and it's 2.25 million aged 18 and over living a meat-free diet.
That's crazy.
With Melbourne and Sydney obviously having the most restaurants because they're leading the charge.
There we go. So that's what brings us here today, is we're going to look at a little bit more detail about the vegan approach to diet.
Well, it is the new gluten-free.
It is the new gluten-free.
I'm going to get hate mail for that, but that's life.
But we'll look at some of the considerations we need to take into account when looking at making the dietary change, if that's something that you're interested in doing. But basically, let's look at just primarily what the different vegetarian and vegan types of diets there are, because there are a few, and you've touched on one before. So flexitarianism. Basically non-committal way of having meat sometimes but not all the time.
Yep.
So, why do people cut out meat
Probably
from
not a
their
bad way
diet?
to live.
No, probably not. Meat aversion is quite common. Some people just don't like eating meat. They don't like the texture. Some people it's just red meat. They really don't like the idea of eating it. And then for other people, there's ethical reasons as to why they might reduce or completely exclude animal products from their diet. So starting from the most sort of loose end, which is a flexitarianism, they might do like a meat-free Monday. They might only eat sort of fish and occasionally, red meat less commonly. Then you've got your lacto-ovo vegetarian. So we're talking about this with Summer. They eat dairy products, they eat eggs, but they won't eat meat products, meat, fish, poultry. Then you've got ovo vegetarians who will eat eggs but no dairy products. And then we move into full veganism, where there is no animal-based products at all. So no dairy, no cheese.
No honey.
No honey.
No B12.
No B12.
Are we going to jump on that now? I'll wait for later on that.
We'll wait for later.
I'm keen to find out where you get your B12 for your vegan diets.
Yeah, well, it's interesting.
Fortified
products, definitely. We'll come back to that. But basically, there's no animal products. And again, some people can do it for ethical reasons. Other people do it purely for the food aversion. And then there's the sort of the theme coming through that a vegan diet may be a more healthy way of living, which, remains to be seen as to whether it is the healthiest way to be eating. And some people are using it for weight loss. So that's probably the broad strokes of, veganism right there. But I think it's important to look at a few key points when we're looking at a vegan diet.
And we need to look at where we're looking at this data too, because Google Trends have 90% increase in the word vegan being searched these days over vegetarian.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked with my auntie she makes cakes at the markets, most beautiful cakes. And I remember about 10 years ago I was working there while I was studying, and someone asked us for a vegan cake. And we were like, eat an apple, mate. That was then. And that was the first time I made a raw vegan ball, because people kept on asking us. I was like, bugger it, okay, I'm going to have to figure out how to do this. So I got the dates out, I got chia seeds, I got pumpkin seeds, I did it. And that was the first time that I should have...
It tasted good, didn't it?
I wish I'd patented that recipe, because...
Oh, you've been Instagram legend right now.
I would have been a rock star.
You would have been a rock star.
But anyway, that's, you don't jump on early, you miss out on the ship. But yeah, there's plenty more people trying to approach it. We've got a couple of, prominent figures who are going the vegan direction.
Beyonce.
Beyonce. Oh, I didn't know Beyonce was vegan.
Got to put a vegan on it.
Oh, gosh. If you like it, then you should have put a steak on it. No, like Gaga's definitely not vegan. We know that from her
I believe
dress.
Beyonce led the way with veganism in a big way.
Oh, I didn't even know she was vegan.
Not that I'm a expert in that area, Morgan, and Morgan, our production manager, would be way more technical in that area than me. But you got your Mrs. Paltrow. Is it Mrs. or Miss
Gwyneth?
Paltrow? Yeah, good old Gwyneth.
Yep. Goop.
Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson. No way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no.
we're talking back in 2013. They could have had 15 diets since then, for all I know. But obviously, you've had some big names jumping behind it. And,
Absolutely.
for brands like ours to take on, one of the three things we want, don't even talk to us about it. If we can do it, that's the way we do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's obviously a big trend coming through, and we see, the raw vegan slices going gangbusters. They are delicious, so I understand that.
And you look at the plant-based protein sales in retail stores these days,
Yep.
up big time.
Yep, most brands will be bringing out a plant-based, so there is a demand for it. And looking at where it's coming from, I think social media has got a really big play in it. People, especially looking at the chicks on the vegan diet, you got Freely the banana girl with her abs out. And so I think people look at that and see, okay, is this something that I should be following? Is it the new weight loss trend? And, rightly or wrongly, people are taking up because they like what they see. However, I think it's really important to sort of dig a little bit deeper before you even start to consider becoming a vegan or a vegetarian, and actually look at, okay, what do you need to consider before making a dietary change? And this is something I bang on about pretty much every dietary approach is, what are you missing out on, or what are the considerations you need to take into account before you even consider it? Because, everything's valid as long as you can do it properly.
Yep.
So the first thing is looking at, okay, what does a vegan diet look like? And so basically we're emphasising plant-based foods. So legumes, whole grains, nuts, seeds, cereals are going to be the basis of the diet. You'll notice straight away that the protein intake is going to be a lot different in a vegan diet versus a omnivorous diet.
Yep.
So somebody who eats plants and meats. And then you can see there's plenty of vegan bodybuilders out there. So anything is
plenty
possible.
Of really cool vegan proteins coming to market now too.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are getting a little bit more techie with the vegan approach, and if people want to do it for ethical reasons, then that's definitely people looking at, okay, how much water, food, land does it cost to raise a cow versus to
2,400 gallons, I think it was when I looked.
It's a lot of water. It's a lot of water.
Versus 25 gallons for some wheat.
So the
or
argument is, if we're eating more of a plant-based diet, are we saving some of the resources we have on the earth? And again, there's plenty of people who have calculations to sort of refute those sort of claims as well. So there's definitely people who are both
there's
sides of the
lovers and
fence.
haters of vegan.
Absolutely. It's a very polarizing diet, and I think you'll find that people who are vegan
are very loyal to the cause.
Very vegan. Yeah. But then there's also the people, like I've got vegan athletes that I work with, and you don't really know about until they have to tell me, because it's really critical to their performance that we know about this. But then there are the people who really grasp onto it, and it is quite emotional for them, and generally that's that's the ethical side of things. And if people are
And each of their own.
that passionate about something, then all power to you, I think.
Yep.
But yeah,
Gotta
so
be all
protein
plant
intake,
power.
plant power, flower power.
Vegains.
Yeah,
Some good words coming out now.
Oh, my vegains, you.
Do you write a lot of vegan programs?
I write a few. It's becoming more popular. Actually, I'm seeing it more. Working with a couple of vegan athletes at the moment. I've had a couple of vegan powerlifters, basketball, cycling. There's a few there, definitely.
Mainly male, mainly female?
Mainly female,
Mixed? Mainly female?
actually, so far. I do know of a few male vegans, I hang out in some pretty cool circles.
Yep.
But, yeah, mainly so far it's been females. That's not to say that that's sort of the representative of the complete demographic. But, so what I'm looking at in their diet straight off the bat when we're looking at a vegan diet is what are we missing out on that we get that are required from animal products that we're not getting in a vegan diet. So straight away the protein profile is going to be slightly different. B12, as you alluded to earlier, is not present in a vegan diet. We can get some in a vegetarian diet, but mainly vegan diet, that's going to be supplemented fairly quick smart. Iron is another one that we can get from plants. However, we can go into a bit more detail about why plant iron is slightly different to animal-based sources of iron. Then we're looking at omega-3 fatty acids as well as being sort of a little bit more deficient in the vegan diet. So they're probably and calcium. So obviously not having dairy products, we are missing out on sources of calcium in the diet. So they're probably the key nutrients that we have to look at in order to create a diet that is, going to meet the nutrient requirements of the human body.
So does it take you longer to put a vegan diet together in your clinic versus...
Yes. First of all, I mean, the couple that I have worked with are doing a really good job.
Yeah.
But on dietary analysis, once I'm looking at their diet in sort of the software, it's straight away, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Half of their iron requirements are being met, half of their calcium requirements are being met. B12 is deficient. Things like selenium can be quite low. And then also making sure that if they're trying to put on lean muscle mass and they're not meeting that protein intake, that can be quite and it's actually it can be quite hard to meet your energy needs as a vegan as well. I actually went vegan for 3 weeks once. I was supposed to go for a month just with a friend of mine who's vegan, so I thought I'd give them a little bit of love and see what they're talking about. I lasted 3 weeks. I was training quite heavily at the time, and I'd lost 3 kilos in that time, and that for me was a no-go. I wasn't trying to lose weight.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up with my energy needs without eating copious amounts of bread.
Yep.
And that didn't agree with my stomach. I eat bread on the regular, but this is I couldn't keep up with my nutrient requirements without my training suffering, so I had to kind of back off from it. But there are plenty of vegans out there who do a really good job at meeting their energy requirements.
There's heaps of restaurants too. There's heaps of places you can go to
Absolutely,
now.
and it's a lot more easy.
Yeah.
Thinking about back, 2006 when I was working with my auntie, vegan cake was like, good luck.
Yeah.
But these days it's a dime a dozen. It's becoming all that more popular now. That it's actually quite easy for people. Most restaurants will have the little vegan symbol next to the meal, indicating that it's vegan friendly. So obviously the demand is there from the population. There's definitely some really great positive points with the vegan diet as well. And I think any diet that makes people think a little bit more about what goes in their mouth is not a bad thing. I think it really puts the emphasis on plants, getting enough, fruits and vegetables. And we know that a lot of Australians are not eating adequate amounts of vegetables. So if there's an approach where maybe, you can do vegan or vegetarian a couple of times a week, that would be sort of recalibrating your intake and getting you to think about, okay, what's going into my mouth? What's this providing me? I think that's a good thing, really.
Yep.
But yeah, so then we're looking at iron intake, and that's definitely something that both the athletic population and non-athletic population need to be aware of, especially females. So females are very...
So what are you doing for their iron?
Again, it would be supplementing. If full vegan, I would be getting them to get their, obviously, blood tests done on a regular basis. If they'd been vegan for a long time, I would probably bet that there would be lower on the lower end, if not deficient. The serum ferritin levels would be on the decline. If they're new vegans, new vegetarians, chances are they probably haven't. Dropped too critically low. But I'd be checking them once every sort of 3 months if they've been deficient, and on a regular basis if they are just choosing that lifestyle long term.
And what are our signs that we're looking for?
It can be a lot of different things, but the biggest ones for iron deficiency would be dizziness, fatigue. You get some, dark rings under the eyes. Memory can go as well, and I personally have experienced this recently. I'm not even vegan, vegetarian. Low iron, it feels pretty crappy.
Yep.
It definitely makes you want to nap more. But it takes about 3 months to 6 months to get them back up again. So depending on how low they have been, it's a really critical mineral for oxygen utilisation across the body. So you do notice when you are iron deficient that your energy levels are pretty poor. Yep. So that's an important one to look out for. And females tend to be a little bit more susceptible to iron deficiency. So that's definitely one to sort of consider. And also that vegetarians actually have a higher iron requirement, and this is because vegan vegetarian diets are using plant-based iron. So this is non-heme, which is not as bioavailable. So basically our body can't take it up as readily as the animal heme iron. Mm-hmm. So it's recommended that vegetarians and vegans have around 1.8 times the RDI, recommended daily intake of iron, to make sure that they're getting that iron intake, because as little as 5% of the iron from food, so we're looking at iron-rich foods like spinach is a big one, nuts, seeds. We can get little bits of irons from those as well. The green leafy vegetables are, rich sources of non-heme iron, but we're not necessarily absorbing as much. Almonds is another one. Dried figs can be another source of vegetarian sort of non-heme iron. But we need to make sure that they're trying to get it from food where possible, but taking into account that not all of that iron is going to be absorbed from the plants, and also complementing it with vitamin C. So if somebody's taking a supplement, or if they're vegan, vegetarian, and they're trying to maximise the absorption of that plant-based iron, 50 milligrams of vitamin C can actually help absorb.
Okay.
But then on the other hand, we've got...
What are we eating for 50 milligrams of vitamin C, just for those people out there that don't know?
So a tomato would contain around, so one tomato or a small handful.
So you're feeding me spinach and tomatoes so far?
It's a salad. Yeah. Delicious. Okay. So fruit, so kiwi fruit, oranges, strawberries. Fruit's really high in vitamin C.
Yep, just
Lemons.
a mix.
Yep. Dairy. Not dairy, what am I saying?
That wouldn't be vegan. Citrus.
Citrus. Whoop. But yeah, so that's what we're looking at. But then we also need to look at what inhibits the absorption of iron, and there's definitely a good list. So calcium actually inhibits the absorption of iron. So we want to be making sure that we're having that away from any iron-rich foods.
Yep.
The tannins in tea and coffee also inhibit the absorption of iron. So again, making sure that we're having tea and coffee away from iron-rich meals is really important.
Can I ask a dumb question here? What's away? Is away half an hour, 3 hours?
I would say an hour, give or take. So we want to make sure that the digestion has occurred, but a couple of hours would probably be safe.
Okay.
With that one there. And then, and also because of the the fibre-rich diet that is vegan, vegetarian, some of the phytates that are contained in those foods can actually inhibit absorption as well. So, I mean, you can't really do too much about that, but it's about being aware of what might enhance and what might inhibit in the diet when it comes to iron absorption specifically.
So should a young female, and I'll pick on a young female, sorry for doing that, but so should a young female be very aware of snacking more regularly on a vegan diet?
As long as it depends on their sort of preferred eating patterns, but they probably would require more frequent meals because, I mean, the general basis, again, that plant-based high fibre, it's going to be highly satiating. So they're going to get full quick and they're going to feel probably full for a long time. So making sure that you're having regular meals and meeting their energy requirements might mean that they're having regular snacks. Otherwise, they might not be meeting that energy total across the day.
Yeah, because it sounded like it was a mixture of energy total and timing of some foods.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this is when working with somebody who's going to be looking at, when are you having those iron-rich foods? When are you having calcium supplements if you need to be having that with a vegan diet? You've got to be looking at when that's all happening. It's really important to be aware. So straight away you can see that it's actually a lot that goes into being vegan. It's not just I'm not having meat anymore. A little bit of planning can make the difference between a really healthy, healthful vegan diet, which is what all of the studies are showing. Yep. It can have heaps of great benefits, for a myriad of reasons. But if it's done poorly, it can mean like a lot of really poor health outcomes as well. So nothing is bulletproof.
Yep.
It comes down to being aware and actually planning properly. So yeah, that's probably the nutrient side of things that's really important. I think from where we're sitting, protein intake is probably the next stop. So what sort of proteins have you got in the plant-based protein?
We've got a new one coming out that won't be much longer after this, where we've definitely playing with the pea protein. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people just run a straight pea protein, which is a bit of a no-no if you ask me. We like to blend it with rice.
Yep.
But we're also hitting the organic ancient grains these days. That's our next venture in. I'm just a big fan of mixing those aminos as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, fantastic. And that brings up a really good point in terms of the availability of amino acids in plant proteins. So we've got our suite of amino acids, and then we've got our essential amino acids. And plant-based proteins aren't always a full suite of amino acids, which means we do need to profile. It used to be the thing where you had to make sure that each meal has a blend of protein. So you might have a limiting amino acid in, say, quinoa. So you have quinoa with some brown rice and you're getting the full suite.
How do you know that?
So you can actually get food data that shows what the amino acid profile of specific foods are. And I send this to all my clients just to give them a look. It's actually quite complicated. But some of the key amino acids that you will find are low in plants are going to be methionine, lysine, what else we got? Tryptophan and leucine can be quite low as well. So when it comes to protein, we're only as strong as our weakest link.
Yep.
And if we're missing or if we're low on one of the amino acids, we're not going to be getting the full benefits of having all those other amino acids there if we're missing one or two, because our diet's not complete. So this is why having that sort of variety in the diet, being aware of where you're getting your protein from, what the different sources are, and how you can profile them. We don't need to profile it in every single meal, but we do need to make sure that across the day we are meeting those amino acid profiles on the whole in the diet.
So this is a question that's going to shit you. I'm sorry, but so
if I want to lose weight, no.
a young adult wants 20 grams of protein in a meal, say.
Yep.
So their meal plan, like they want some vegans.
Vegans, yep.
So what are they putting on their plate to get 20 grams of protein?
Well, look, I mean, I'd be looking at using some brown rice. I'd be looking quinoa.
Where are we at so far?
In terms of per gram, let me get my Fitness Pal out.
Sorry, yeah.
I've got tables
just
of this.
ballparky.
I'll give you the
Are we over
tables to
5
put through
yet?
the links. Yeah, potentially. So let's look at maybe about 9. Oh, off the top of my head, gee whiz,
sorry about
9 grams per about 100.
I'm just food planning how 99% of the population does.
There we go. Per 100 in brown rice. So look, it's pretty high, but I'd be making sure that
Eating a fair bit of brown rice then.
eating a fair bit of brown rice. But making sure that I've got maybe some quinoa, maybe some tofu, and then, some vegetables in there, which provide us a small amount of protein, but not a huge whack. I wouldn't.
So it's not that hard, really.
It's 20 grams of protein is not hard to hit with a vegetarian diet at all.
Perfect.
But I would require people to actually, have a look what are some of the good quality sources of protein. And so we would be looking at things like tofu, tempeh, quinoa, nuts and seeds, but keeping in mind that some of those foods are quite calorific. So you can go over the top with the calorie content a little bit. Obviously nuts aren't a protein source directly. They are more of a fat source, but we can use them in a vegan, vegetarian diet as the source of protein. So that's...
Any particular nuts we should trend more towards than another type of nut?
They've all got different levels of protein.
Yeah.
Almonds tend to be the higher protein. Peanuts aren't bad either. And you can get some products with, I know, peanut butter. They're doing high protein peanut butter now. So they're fortifying the protein with extra peanut powder to increase the protein intake.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that people are across and aware of. But looking at the amino acid profiles of different plants when you're first becoming a vegan or vegetarian is super important. Just being confident that you know what's missing and what's not, and working with a professional to help you do that would be very beneficial, definitely.
Perfect.
I think also to point out that, when we're using a vegan protein, say we want to make sure that if you're an athlete or if you're somebody who's looking to put on some lean muscle mass, don't have to be an athlete, you can just be a regular gym goer.
Yep.
The vegan, vegetarian gym goer would have to be making sure that, so I said that leucine might not be as high, and leucine is that amino acid that is associated with muscle protein synthesis. So, there's studies showing, I know Van Loon did a great study comparing, re-looking at the way in which vegan, vegetarian proteins will trigger muscle protein synthesis after a meal. They were comparing soy protein versus whey protein, and we know that whey protein is a really rich source of leucine and has a really great effect on raising muscle or the amino acid levels in the blood to trigger muscle protein synthesis. However, soy isn't as great at doing it, and again, profiling and making sure we're getting that critical mass. So it might mean putting a little bit of extra leucine in a vegan vegetarian protein as well, to make sure that they're hitting that leucine threshold as well, as something to keep in mind with the vegan diet. So a few considerations there.
Yeah, okay. So obviously B12 is a big one.
Yes, B12.
The vegan population?
Yeah, so B12 is pretty much used in almost every single sort of cell in the body. It's associated with DNA production, RNA, cell health in the body, and it can be produced in our gut, but we also need to be getting it from external sources, so dietary sources.
Tough one to get for a vegan.
Tough one to get for a vegan. We were discussing this earlier and my mind was blown just a little bit, because I was like, where do vegans get B12? Well, obviously, where does the B12 from vegan supplements come from? And I feel like
That's taboo. We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that.
No. Even the products that they say it comes from are fortified.
So with looking at things like brewer's yeast, Vegemite's a good source of B12. Yeast
B12
products.
tablet is a good source of B12.
And I will put most, if not all, vegans straight onto a B12 supplement.
Straight the doctor for a shot.
Straight off the bat for that one. But, we're looking at them.
I played vegan for a while.
Yeah? What did you experience?
This is years ago. We first started making a vegan range in 2013. So just to see what it was like, my daughter was talking along those lines back then as a very young teenager.
Wow.
She was very much against the animal being used in food.
Wow.
So I thought I'll do it with her, and that way,
we can
watch
share
and cooking and do things together.
Yeah.
And I became very low on B12.
Yeah, there we go.
I went and had the blood test, did all the things, and Had to supplement. Felt $1 million once I did.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
I was saying before, my iron was on the floor just a few weeks ago, and I'm currently supplementing with iron. And the difference, I mean, it's been a month now I've been supplementing, and the rates of nappage has reduced drastically, which is great. I feel a lot better. So we know that these sort of deficiencies actually really do impact well-being. And so being aware and being...
That's all it is. It's not like a negative. Don't not think vegan because these things. It's just be aware.
Absolutely. And you know, chat to your medical professional,
Absolutely.
chat to your nutrition professional, making sure that you're across it and that you're being diligent with your, blood tests, just making sure that you're not dipping under. I know, if you've been deficient, getting tested once every 3 months just to make sure that you're dipping back up.
Yep.
Athletes will get tested coming into an event or a big race, and they'll also get tested coming into, like, say, altitude training, just to make sure that they're making the most of that as well, that adaptation. Because if we're experiencing any kind of deficiency, our body's not going to be adapting as well as it should be. So it's pretty important. But
how visible is the vegan trend for you in the Dietitians Australia perspective?
We get a lot of questions about
You
it. It's becoming increasingly popular, and it's the social media aspect, I think, and I get asked a lot. I used to get asked a lot about coconut oil. We're moving away from coconut oil, and now it's vegan. People want to know, what it is, what to do, and some people are doing it for the right reasons, and then there are the people who are maybe looking at it for probably the wrong reason. That it's purely for a weight loss perspective. And look, there's lots of different ways. If
I'm eating a lot of nuts and I'm eating a lot of rice and I'm eating a lot of breads and...
Well, Oreos are vegan. Barbecue shapes are vegan as well.
Wow.
So, I mean,
maybe go back.
Sugar's vegan, white flour's vegan, and these are all the things that we'd associate with a less optimal diet.
Absolutely. So how do we lose weight there?
Well, you probably don't unless you're not eating enough.
Yep.
And then we're looking at nutrient deficiencies. So really you can do it badly, you can lose weight, but you can also end up really unwell.
Yep.
You could do it well, making
But that's any diet, but yeah.
That's any diet, absolutely. So we're not saying this is any different to that.
So it's not the holy weight loss grail.
It is not the holy weight loss grail. It is, chances are by following a vegan diet you are cutting out 2 or 3 food groups.
Yep.
You are limiting your access to calories, and therefore you're probably creating a calorie deficit. So if you're if you're doing it for weight loss and you do it properly, then good. It probably emphasizes more, of those beneficial, vegetables and fruits and whole grains and all those nutrients things that we should be eating. But if you're going vegan and you're eating Oreos, white bread and white rice, you're going to end up in trouble. But that's just the same with everything, you know what I mean? I had a long, long time ago when I first started nutrition, I was being supervised and I was doing a nutrition consultation with a vegan who was obese. And we were going through his diet history going like, why would this be the case? Like, da-da-da-da. And it came out he was having 5 jumbo soy chai lattes per day. And, that's the calorie surplus, like easy. He was drinking probably close to 2 litres of soy milk. And then if you look at chai powder, it's horrendous. There's, cream, there's sugar, there's all sorts of things in there. So, it just goes to show you can think you're doing the right thing, but unless you actually look at it from all angles, it's hard to be objective with your own diet. Absolutely. But, I mean, it's not until you really dig deep and ask those questions that you find out that soy chai lattes aren't necessarily a weight loss tool.
Okay. So outside of iron, B12, calcium,
Yep.
anything else I should be focusing on if I want to try a vegan diet?
Well, the omega-3s is probably that next one. So we've got...
and how does a plant-based omega rank to, say, a fish-based omega?
It's a similar story to iron. So we've got the plant-based omega-3s and 6s of...
Axes and all that.
Yeah. So we're looking at things like the essential fatty acids coming from plant-based sources are going to be walnuts, flaxseed, chia seeds, and the nuts and seeds, basically.
Yep.
Algae is a rich source of omegas. And that's down the bottom of the food chain for the fish.
Yep.
That's where they're getting it from.
It's
But
at the top in a greens formula.
yeah. But so we're making sure that we're also balancing out the omega-3s, because it can be quite hard unless you're having oily fish to be hitting those essential fatty acids in the right mixture. A plant-based diet tends to be high in the omega-6s, which isn't necessarily always ideal, out of balance with your omega-3s. So just keeping in mind.
Are there any dangers there for the people who don't know?
Well, I mean, there's some sort of research to say that potentially when we're eating a higher level of omega-6s, that might be pro-inflammatory.
Okay.
We know that omega-3s...
Which is probably a reason why a lot of people start vegan diets in the first place.
Well, yeah, the reducing inflammation, a plant-based diet it can be a way to do that. But, there's so much information out there that conflicts left, right and centre. But we know, omega-3 fatty acids have an anti-inflammatory properties. So when they're out of balance, it may be tipping the body over. But again, if we're eating a variety of foods and looking at the sources of where we're getting those nutrients from, we can be sort of reducing the risk of falling in. It's when we do all or nothing sort of approaches that we tend to fall into those sort of gaps. So yeah, the essential fatty acids are probably one that we'd also need to look at. And then again, calorie content, making sure that we're within our calorie budget.
Yep. So in a traditional diet where we're eating anything, all food groups, we can definitely have what's said to be a poor diet or a bad diet or a incorrect diet, whichever word you want to use.
Yes.
What are we throwing into a vegan diet that puts it in that category?
Oh man, I would say it's the vegan products. There's a lot of highly processed vegan foods.
Yep.
The first thing I'd be looking at is the chips. They're vegan. Potato chips. They're fried in vegetable oil. They're potatoes. They're covered in salt. Oreos, like I said before, there are products that are vegan. There are lollies that are vegan. So obviously most lollies will contain gelatin, which is a animal product. But we can get vegan lollies. So and then lots and lots of processed white flour, white bread, that kind of stuff. They're nutrient poor, energy dense foods. Whereas a good vegan diet is focusing on those good quality protein sources. We're profiling protein. We're getting, adequate amounts of, the legumes and the whole grains, rice, quinoa, buckwheat, those kinds of things. A couple of pieces of fruit and then the vegetables, nuts as snacks. It's pretty easy, and you can look at the plate and see that it's healthy.
Yep.
The poor vegan diet, you look at the plate and it looks pretty white. And that's the same with all sort of poor diets.
Exactly,
There's a lack of colour, there's a lack of variety, and there's a lot of processed foods involved. So you can look at your plate and tell most of the time whether you're on track or not. And I think that can be quite a powerful tool for people just to see how much colour is on their plate. And again, things like cereals feature quite heavily in a vegan vegetarian diet, but we all know that cereal can be an absolute pack a sugar punch, depending on how processed they are, how much added sugar they are. So I think it's important just to look at food quality. Again, flying the flag for food quality, looking at compliance. Like if you're following a vegan diet purely for the sake of weight loss, and you find yourself, restricting, and it is causing, issues to quality of life, or it is, those sorts of negative impacts of any kind of diet, then, review. Is this working for me? Some people find it really easy to follow, and it's like a second skin. Yep. Other people, they think they're following it for the wrong reasons, and they find it really difficult, and they end up, binge eating on chicken nuggets. Not ideal, but that's the sort of signal when a diet probably isn't working for you. Yep. It should be a positive aspect of your life, and it should only be a small aspect of your life, and veganism is one part of it. It probably is, in terms of all the diets, the one that has a more sort of ethical backbone to it. and as such has a bit more of emotion attached to it. But also, I mean, I've friends with all sorts, and I've got vegan friends you wouldn't know they were vegan until they brought it up, and they do their own advocating in their own ways, and it's not an issue if you're not vegan. But then you get other people who, again, they're holding on to it quite tightly, and it becomes a point of contention with people, and it's like, well, anything like that causes a lot of friction for the way you eat. I would question whether or not that's a positive. Definitely. So yeah, I think that's probably on the whole the sort of the picture when it comes to veganism. It's a plant-based diet. We're looking at specific nutrients that we might not be able to get from the plants. We're looking at protein, iron, omega-3s, calcium, B12. Other than that, we can do it really well, or we can do it poorly. So I think that's probably the basics of it.
Nice. Well, I reckon that probably covers
most of the aspects of it. Yeah, definitely. I don't think it has to be easy or as complicated as you like it, but I think that's probably the key when you're starting out.
A little bit more planning for those people that probably aren't planning as much as they should be.
Absolutely, and anything that makes you sort of concentrate more on the quality of your diet,
Bring
always
it on.
good by me.
Perfect. Well, that buzzword has just been chatted. Look, we're going to hear a lot about vegan if you look at the Euromonitor data in relation to where sports nutrition's going to.
Yep.
They're definitely the plant-based. Vegan is a growth category. Major companies are buying, dairies are buying vegan brands. So, and like our brand's definitely got a major play towards vegan if we can.
Yeah, wow.
So I assume you're going to be writing a few more vegan diets.
Here we go, bring it on.
Yeah. So that's harrietwalker.com.au.
That's the one. And Harriet Walker at Athletic Eating Instagram.
Well, there you go. You may see, well, there's a good potato shot up there on the weekend. So happy days, guys. Thanks heaps for joining the podcast.
Thank you.
This week's episode is brought to you by the new Body Science Clean Bar, available at Sporty's Warehouse, ASN Nationally, Nutrition Warehouse, Rock Hard Supplements, DY Discount Vitamins, or bodyscience.com.au.